Before we go, thank you. I was just going to say that before we go any further, just wanted to let you know that this meeting is being recorded so that people that could not attend today can also get this information. All right, next slide. So this is our leadership team. My name is Saili Joshi. In case you have coming to the meeting for the first time, I'm the chair of PDAC. The rest of our team, most of them are also on the call. Michael Razak, who is the school board president for, I think his last time was just recently, and same with Kathy Peel, Jen Rowe, who's our director of educational equity. Then we have Ginger, Rahman, Rachel, Gadir, Shelley, and Karen as our PDAC leadership team. I also wanted to take a second to recognize our school board members that are on this call. Just put in chat if I missed your name, but I see Justin, Natasha, Mark Rising, our school board elect, Allison, and Kathy. So if I'm missing anyone who joined a little bit later, but thank you for coming. It is really wonderful to have so many school board members always at our meetings and contributing to PDAC. Next slide, please. So I wanted to read our PDAC promise to you. And if you see on the top right, we have a new hashtag with the mosaic background, and the hashtag is We Belong 204. And that was really put in place to let every single person in our community, all of our students and all of our parents know that you belong in our school district. We see you, we hear you, and we want you here. It was a very nice gesture of IPPC this past week, and this meeting is also co-sponsored by IPPC. They are actually having another meeting that goes until 7:30 today, but in a few minutes, Karen Duncan, who is the president of IPPC board, will join us as well. But at their meeting, they actually decided to also adopt this hashtag as part of their logo. And I think it is a wonderful collaboration and a wonderful intentional kind of action to say that, you know, we really do validate every single one of our students here in 204. The PDAC promise is to engage in active conversation concerning issues that are important to you. We promise to stand alongside you when you need an advocate. We promise to work with the district to ensure all families and students in our community feel welcomed in their respective school building and in their classrooms. We promise to continue to bring awareness to the meaning of equity. And most importantly, and this is our mission statement, we promise to advance District 204's commitment to equity and educational excellence always. Next slide. If you have any concerns, we do show this graph every time at our meeting. This is a graph that's on our page, on the district page, and often teachers or principals will also share this with the community. But this is kind of the path to go if you have any type of concern for your child, or if you have a concern at an elementary level, where to start. As you see, always start with the teacher at any level, but after that, the titles of the people that you go to may be a little bit different. So this is a resource that we always try to highlight. Next slide. So these are our norms, and we ask that you please follow them tonight and at every one of our meetings. Nothing that out of the ordinary. Stay on task, be relevant. It's about equity. Be honest, be open, be respectful. Every voice counts. Then we added two more, and this is, you know, turn on your camera if you can. We love to see all of the faces that are here. It kind of, as teachers say, it is more engaging when everyone is visible. So that's up to you. And then we also are asking that you use your real name. You can absolutely, you know, just rename yourself if you are able to, but that way we know who's in the room, who we're interacting, and it's just a kind of a polite way so that we know who we're talking to when we are responding to any of your questions. Next slide. This is in case you haven't been following the school board meetings. This was a equity statement that this 204 school board adopted a few months ago. I'm not going to read the whole thing. It is on our Facebook page for PDAC. It is obviously on the district page as well. But we did want to acknowledge and thank the school board for adopting this statement. We also wanted to share that the IPSC 204 board equity goal is board goal number 2, to continue to be proactive, collaborative, and ongoing commitment to equity. So this is also something that we are very proud to have the school board adopt. Next slide. So as you saw on our slide when I introduced the team for, I don't know, decades maybe. No, I don't think Mike Razak is that old, but for many, many, many years, Mike Razak and Kathy Peel have been involved with PDAC. And this last board meeting was their last board meeting. They both have retired from the school board. And Kathy, I don't know if you are here on here. I'm going to try to.
I'm here.
Yeah. Hi, Kathy. So I wanted to just take a moment to thank you personally, as well as on behalf of the team. You have always been a voice for equity on the board. And, oftentimes our team will watch the school board meetings and we'll be typing something or we'll be thinking something and we'll say, oh my gosh, I wish one of the board members would say that. And you say it for us. And that is, it really is something that we have appreciated, that, your vote sometimes is not the same as everyone else because you are looking at it from a very close equity lens. And we wanted to thank you for that and to thank you for your service to our students and your commitment for so many years to PDAC. Just because you are no longer in the board doesn't mean that we're going to let you go from PDAC. I think, we would love to continue to have you as a community member and as a part of PDAC going forward. But I really wanted to take a moment to say thank you. And if you'd like to say something, please do.
Well, thank you very much for that. That's sweet. I think the progress that we've made in this district, though, is because the entire board has taken on that equity lens. And our discussions are always great because we get different perspectives. And so, I'm so happy with the new board members that will be coming on. I'm so excited to see what they have to say. And I know the equity initiatives will be very much the highlight and the focus for all of the board members going forward. So it's an exciting time. And no, you don't get to get rid of me very easily. So,
well, we hope you stay on for many more years. And we also wanted to say thank you to Mike Razak. He was not able to join us today. He's taking care of a family member right now. But Mike has been a rock for us, particularly for me as the chair of PDAC. Any issue or any concern that I've had, I joke with him that we have a bat phone, and he knows and has always been so good about picking up when he sees that I have called, because I try not to bother him unless it is really important. But Mike, when you do see this recording, we will be soon, hopefully, at a Bears game together again and having our, lunches at Panera. But until then, take care of yourself. And we are hoping that we can, in person, thank you and Kathy in the fall when we have a chance to get together as a community again. So thank you to both of you. Next slide, please. So I'm very excited that we are going to end our year with our book. So we kept, I kept saying it's next month, because we were holding out the hope that we would have all three authors, Dr. Kendi, Jason Reynolds, and Sonia Cherry Paul, to our meeting. And I am thrilled that all three of them have been able to come, and will be there. So if you haven't registered, we have I think we have close to 200 people that are going to be on that call, but certainly, we will accommodate as many people as that want to be there. Please do register for that. If you haven't finished the book or even started the book, the library has tons of copies of the book and digital copies as well for you to check out. They're part of our partners. Naperville Neighbors United is a partner, obviously PDAC, and then we also have Pages, Paces, and PATS. Next slide. So I did want to take a minute before we start to recognize that it is Sikh Heritage Month this month. And one of our own board members, Natasha Grover, has agreed to come on and talk a little bit about the Sikh heritage and the religion and the culture, and to share it with all of us. As many of you recall, there was a awful incident in Indiana not long ago, where some members of the Sikh community lost their lives, and we do want to give our condolences to the entire community, and particularly of families here in District 204. But we also equally want to celebrate their culture and their heritage. So Natasha, if you wouldn't mind for a few minutes sharing your thoughts.
Rena, thank you. Thanks so much for having me here to PDAC and the PDAC leadership team. Siley, do you have great.
Yep, we have all your slides. Yeah.
Okay, great. So Governor Pritzker passed a bill on August 3 designating April of each year as Sikh Awareness Month, and the city of Naperville passed a proclamation on April 20th, 2021, acknowledging the contributions of Sikh Americans. As a Sikh American myself, I am very appreciative of the governor and the mayor recognizing the contribution of the Sikh Americans. Slide 2, please. The next slide. There we go. A little bit about Sikhism. It originated in India about 500 years ago, and mainly in the Punjab region of South Asia. There are more than 25 million Sikhs around the world, which makes Sikhism the world's 5th largest religion. Sikhs came to the US in the late 1800s, and there are an estimated 500,000 Sikhs living in America today. Punjab, which is in northern India, is known for its agricultural community, and it is the breadbasket of India. Therefore, most of the Sikhs that came to US in the 1800s, they came to California, and they are known as the farmers. They came as farmers, and currently in Yuba City, in Yuba, Sutter County, the Sikh farmers account for 95% of the peach farming, 60% of the prune farming, and 20% of the walnuts. Due to discrimination in the 1800s and 1900s, Sikhs could not marry Caucasians. So they married the Mexican Americans, and they have formed a sizable Punjabi Sikh Mexican American community in California. Slide 3, please. Sikhism was started by Guru Nanak Dev Ji as a spiritual, social, and political platform based on equality, compassion, and social justice. The main teachings are that we do not discriminate based on caste, gender, and nationality, which made it unique in its time 500 years ago. At that time and currently, there is a caste system where, based on your last name, you are assigned a social hierarchy. In addition, women were seen as property. I don't know if you've heard of the practice of sati. Sati is when the husband passes away, The widow is burned alive with her husband's cremation. So, and people were also doing some religious rituals such as fastings at the time. So Guru Nanak Dev Ji renounced all this. And to do away with the caste system, one of our gurus designated the name Singh. So you will see men with the name Singh, which means lion. And for the women, they designated the name Kaur. Kaur means princess. So a lot of Sikhs do not have a typical last name, such as Smith, or they just have either Singh or Grover. And if they, I'm sorry, Singh or Kaur. And like my kids, we use our last name, like my family does, but then you will find it in their middle name. So it's always part of the culture. In our temple is called Gurudwara. Gur, it means guru, and dwar means door. So it means at the door of your guru, your teacher, somebody who brings you from darkness to light. Everyone sits on the floor and eats together. And the reason everyone sits on the floor is because you don't know if there's a rich person sitting next to you or a poor person sitting next to you. So again, it's all about equality. Slide 4, please. The 6 teachings teach us that the purpose is to meet God. We believe in one God, and we achieve this through meditation, serving others, having an honest living, and seeing equality in all. It is a message based on the principles of love and oneness for all. And because of that, it calls for social justice for everyone. That is why a lot of Sikhs are warriors, in the sense that Sikhs only make up 2% of the population in India, but they make up 11% of the military. And the British had a specific Sikh regiment during World War II for them. Slide 5, please. This is one of our most well-known gurdwaras. It's called the Golden Temple, and you will find it in the state of Punjab in India. And the thing about our gurdwaras, our temples, is it is open to anyone. It doesn't matter your race, religion, caste, anybody. So on a typical day, it serves 100,000 people food, and it's all free food. So you will see people from all over, homeless people, everyone can come here and get free food. Next slide, please. One of the pillars of the Sikh faith is seva. Seva means selfless service. Anyone, like I said, is welcome to the Gurdwara, and at disaster time, we always open. So in America, like during COVID or hurricanes or the California fires, the Sikhs provided free shelter and food to anyone who needed it. In Chicago, we have 2 Gurdwaras. One is in Wheaton and one is in Palatine. And I know Naperville 203 used to have people come to visit, like teachers, and send a bus to visit, because like I said, it's open to anyone and anyone can come. Next slide, please. You can recognize a Sikh person, usually a man, by an outwardly appearance of a beard and turban. Worn historically by South Asian royalty, again, anyone can wear it, a man or a woman, and it's a reminder of commitment to service, compassion, and honesty. But because of the outward appearance, Sikhs are frequently targeted as terrorists and subjected to hate crimes. One of the first hate crimes that happened after 9/11 was a Sikh person who was gunned down in Arizona. In 2012, a white supremacist entered our Gurdwara in Wisconsin and started shooting, killing 6 people. And the recent Indiana attack killed 4 Sikhs. Whenever a domestic terrorism act occurs, Sikh advocacy groups will alert the Sikh community, because it is terrifying. You don't know, you wait, as a Sikh person, you wait for that name, and you're hoping that domestic terrorism is not, it hasn't occurred from a foreign sounding person's name, because unfortunately, you've kind of become accustomed to somebody taking that foreign sounding person's name and associating it with, our religion or targeting us for that. Slide 8, please. So I want to end it by pointing out some of Sikhs that you may know, you may not know. So the first one on top left is Lily Singh. She has a show, Late Night with Lily Singh. The second one is Waris Aluwalia. He is an actor. He's also a model. He's in the Gap model. The one on the far right, he is Ajay Banga, and he was the CEO for MasterCard for 10 years. The one on the left bottom is Narinder Singh, and he was the father of fiber optics. And the lady on the bottom is Rupi Kaur, and she is a poet. And I want to again thank you so much for the PDAC team for allowing me to have this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Natasha. And we do love that we are able to highlight many of the cultures and holidays. If you follow our Facebook page, we're trying to be very intentional in educating people of what our community is celebrating throughout the year. So please do, like our Facebook page to get those updates as well. I also want to take a moment, Natasha's langar, which they call it, which is the food that they give. We're just discussing that they have turned that into giving oxygen in India. And as many of you know, India has been hit with COVID at a rate that is just tragic. So I know there are many people on this call and many people in our 204 community that have lost family members and are very worried about their families back in India. So our thoughts and prayers go out to all of you. And if there is anything that we can do to support you during this time, please do reach out. Okay, next slide, please. And I just want to also acknowledge that Lori Donahue has also joined. So thank you, Lori, for coming. She is also on our school board. So the April equity update, now I would like to call Jen Rowe to come and speak. Welcome, Jen.
Hi, thanks, Siley. Natasha, thank you so much for that amazing presentation. Again, so many people are saying they learned so much, so thank you for that. Next slide, please. Okay, a part of our equity work that we've been doing in the district is we like to start our presentations with a land acknowledgement. And it's just an opportunity to honor and recognize the original caretakers of the land that we occupy at this time. So at this time, I would like to recognize that we as members of Indian Prairie School District 204 are gathering on the ancestral lands of the Potawatomi, and we would like to thank their elders, both past and present. Thank you. Next slide, please. All right, just a few things to highlight that are taking place in the district right now. We've learned so much from the pandemic. That's kind of why we're here tonight. And one of the biggest challenges, of course, was with our little people and them just doing school online. And we wanted to have an opportunity to help just be present, to be in those classrooms, to see and connect with our kiddos and our teachers. And out of that came our mystery reader series, and it's something that we're going to continue as a part of our equity work moving forward. And so each month we've had a theme, which has allowed for us to, again, focus in on bringing stories into the classrooms and share them. And again, that representation matters in our texts, and for kids to see themselves and again support our teachers and students. And so currently this month our series is Inclusive Voices. It is Autism Awareness Month, and we wanted to make sure that again that we're presenting stories that celebrate all of our differences. And so this is the book I read actually today, which is called A Friend for Henry. Next month will be Asian American and Pacific Islander History Month, and we'll finish off the season with a series of stories that we'll bring to our classrooms that way. Right now, we've entered into 190 classrooms and touched on over 5,700 students. So again, even through these challenging times, we've learned that we can make a difference and have a reach by just bringing books virtually into the classroom. I wanted to share again what we've learned through the pandemic is that we have barriers and obstacles for teachers as well. And last year when we were entered into the pandemics, looking at the impact of COVID-19 as well as systemic racism, we were like, getting all these calls from teachers and students, and they're like, we need to talk about things, and we wanted to learn together. So then we came up with our Equity Summer Summit so we could do those things. And it's now a part of the work that will be moving forward every year. And so as soon as our last summit was over, we kind of came up with a new theme. We're like, there's so much going on. We have 33.3% of our students who are from that, I hate saying just Asian community, because that's a huge monolith. What do we know? So let's learn. So this summer, that's what our theme will be, is CS Asian Identities. And our educators from across the district will be able to come together and have many sessions where they can learn and grow. So very excited about that. And many people here today will be helping us with that as well. We'll have our last community circle. So that was something that I was able to start this year. So each month in our newsletter, you'll see a little invite that says Community Circles, Lunch, Listen, and Learn. That will be pushed out in a week again for our final session. So please look for that, or you can email me. I'd love to hear your voice during one of our gatherings. So we'll have those again next year, but we have one more for this year. And I wanted to stop and just give a thanks. I thank you to Dr. Ruby Kaur. She's here, and she's been an amazing thought partner for me since I entered this job. And one of the things she did for our educators, not only in our district, but also in our surrounding districts, is she organized with the Illinois Sikh community a session for our teachers. And we had an amazing time together, and I appreciate the community coming out to enlighten us. So thank you so much. All right, thank you, Ms. Siley.
Great.
All right, we're ready for the main event. We're getting ready for amazing colleagues that will be here tonight to share with you. So I know we have Doug Akarius and so many more of our teammates. So I know Doug's going to start us off tonight, and we'll get to hear from everyone. And then at the end, our team will be here to take your questions. Thanks so much, Doug.
Great, thank you. First, I want to say thank you to PDAC for hosting this event and for all the support you've given since the start of this pandemic. I'd also like to thank all of the parents, staff, school board, and students for their flexibility, advocacy, determination, and resilience during this non-traditional school year. I'm going to use the rest of the slide to talk a little bit about, just try to answer some of the questions that came in ahead of time. So first, one of the questions was, how are students doing right now? My opinion is that students, they're excited to see other students. The ones at school are excited to be at school. The ones Zooming in from home are excited to see other classmates in the classroom and see their teachers. They are also growing, and they are also acting more and more like kids again. When students first returned, the hallways were kind of quiet, and I think a lot of people were trying to make sure that they were doing everything right. And now as we visit the schools, there's a lot more buzz, and you hear the kids as the hallways are changing classes, and just kids being kids. Also, I think our staff have grown, and I think they've responded amazing to all the changes and challenges. But I would also say that they're exhausted, and we can't thank them enough for all they've done to support students and each other. Another topic that came up was just assessment. And so one of the questions was, how did testing change this year? We did not administer AIMSweb benchmark assessments to all students in the fall. Buildings were able to administer the assessment remotely to select students as needed. AIMSweb was administered to all students in the winter, with many students taking the assessment remotely. We did not administer the practice SAT to 8th grade students as we usually do in September. Instead, we relied on other data points to guide 9th grade course recommendations. The COGAT assessment that is normally administered to 2nd and 5th grade students in October was delayed until this spring. We did administer the SAT to current seniors in September, and the PSAT and MSQT to current juniors in October. ISBE canceled the 9th grade and 10th grade spring practice SAT, but we did begin administering the SAT to juniors earlier this month, and makeups will continue through May. Another question was, did remote kids opt out of testing to significant degrees? This varies by test. For example, fall SAT for 12th grade, we had 85% participation, and this was in person only. For 2nd grade COGAT, we had 75%, and this was also in person only. For winter Ames Web, 97% participation, but that was administered both in person and remotely. And we have not yet completed spring state testing. That is still finishing. And finally on assessment, another question was, do we know anything yet about the results of testing? It's difficult to make direct comparisons to results from previous years because none of our current testing has happened on the same timelines or in the same manner. For example, the average SAT score from September was 1182, which is about 40 points higher than previous years. However, students took the test 5 months later than usual, and not all students participated. Testing results from this year will be much more useful at the individual student and classroom level than they will be for district-wide comparisons to past performance. Normal reporting from the testing companies is not useful given the differences in testing this year. We are working to create local, current, and historical norms that will allow us to draw some district-wide conclusions from the data, and these should give us some insight into the areas of greatest need for next fall. Another question was just lessons learned, and I kind of get asked that question quite a bit. I think one of the things was a big reminder that schools are so much more than a place just to learn content. We rely on the schools for many things, especially that social interaction. We definitely saw Maslow before Bloom, where we had to meet those basic needs, making sure people had food and shelter and that people felt safe. We also see the importance of, belongingness. We need to make sure that we keep our focus on relationships and connectedness. We also learned about the ability to leverage technology in new and meaningful ways. I know Laura Rosenblum's going to talk about that when she talks about elementary middle school and about for access and what it meant for parent-teacher conferences and different opportunities. Many more people who normally wouldn't be able to attend were able to attend. We also saw some lessons really around authentic assessments and different ways to gauge how learners were learning and trying different formats and trying to look at more project-based learning, as well as allowing opportunities for students to take their assessments in different ways. And I think finally, just, the sense that, we can do this and we can overcome things and we can, really do whatever we put our minds to. So I think those would be our big lessons learned from this year. And as we look now into the 2021-22 school year, how can we, continue to support our students and our families? One of the questions was about what is remote going to look like for next year. And as we've communicated, we want all students to return for in-person learning unless they are medically unable to due to COVID. We have a lot of work to do and hope for clear guidance from the state as soon as possible. But we do have committees working by levels on this right now to return all students for in-person learning, as I said, if medically able to do so. Our big focus as we look on this, especially in the beginning part of the year, is going to be about re-engagement. We'll have a heavy focusing on just re-engaging with school. We're going to have a way higher percentage of students who are starting back with us in the fall than we've seen throughout this year. And we're going to need to focus on relationships, connectedness, and discovering what it means to be a learner. We're looking at that portrait of a graduate across all grade levels and How can we help students be successful? We're going to have a huge emphasis on cooperation and collaboration and how to work as a team and do those types of things. So those are the major focuses that we'll have as we enter into the fall and as we prepare to help all students grow after I said such a kind of non-traditional year. So at this time, I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to Laura Rosenblum.
Hello, everyone. It is really my pleasure to join this committee and to be a part of tonight's meeting. I have the distinction of sharing with you some of the highlights from early childhood, from elementary school, and from our middle level. And as Doug mentioned, right, it was a year of change and it was a year of challenge. And I even know in the Rosenblum household, I have two students that are in college, or two children that are in college, and I have a daughter that's in high school. And there were tears at times this year, like there were things that were really hard, but I think there were also some amazing things that came out of the pandemic that we've learned. So I do want to just highlight a few of those, and I'll start with just some overall highlights, and then I'll talk specifically about each of the different levels. But oh my goodness, this first one will be no surprise to anyone, but the students' capacity to use technology grew exponentially. And I would say teachers' capacity grew exponentially, administrators and parents, right? Now we all know how to do Google Classroom and Zoom and all kinds of other things. And we know that technology is a part of our future and it's a life skill. And I think what's so amazing about kids is their willingness to take risks and try new things and not worry that things might be lost. But also, I saw so many students helping each other, but also the teacher with technology, right? Like even our first graders were like, Mrs. Rosenblum, if you press this, or here's how you fix it. It was just really wonderful to see how they wanted to share that knowledge and information with each other that they had learned. We also saw students' independence grow. My mom example is, I realized at one point, why was I still packing my children's lunches? Like they were very capable of doing it, but I didn't quite realize it fast enough. And I feel like we found some places where kids really did step up and demonstrate that independence that maybe we hadn't thought to give them before. We also really appreciated all of the support from our parents. We know that this would not have been possible without the partnership with you and all of the work that you've done. But we also felt it gave parents a chance to see firsthand, not just what their child was learning, but how their child was learning. And to see like, gosh, I always wondered, was my kid willing to ask questions? Was my kid willing to take that chance and answer questions and participate? Or wow, I didn't realize how hard it was for my student to actually focus, right? So I think it gave parents a new perspective, which was really helpful. We also found, as Doug mentioned, that we had higher participation in parent-teacher conferences and our special ed meetings this year. And you know, our goal is to partner with parents. We know we do our best work for all students when we're able to partner with you. And so I think the fact that people didn't have to take off of work or didn't have to get childcare, like it just made it convenient and more possible for people. So we hope to go forward and continue to offer that as an option for people that would like to take advantage of it. And then we also continued our work with problem solving. We have teams at every school that work to meet the needs of students. And this year, those teams encountered some new challenges, right? How do we make sure kids are engaged on Zoom? We didn't really have to ask that question before. How do we help connect families who maybe are working on other issues in their life and haven't had a chance to stay connected with the school? What about the student who's struggling in math? That's one we handled before, but it looks a little bit different when it's remote. So those teams have continued to meet to really make sure that we're continuing to support students' academic growth, but also their social and emotional growth. Next slide, please. I'll give just a few highlights from each of the areas. So early childhood, one of the things that they found was the remote learning packets that they used really helped enhance the parents' understanding of developmentally appropriate instruction for their children, and parents having that chance to interact with their kids and try the activities, but then also to give feedback to the team, because the next one is about parents and staff connecting via Zoom. We found that that was really crucial to the student learning and engagement, and that really the coaching and education was what made it more beneficial for student success. So again, that partnership was so helpful, and really we were able to add technology in December of 2020. So we were able to do things on Zoom with kids, but also with families, and provide some teletherapy. So that was really helpful. As early childhood is looking to next year, a couple of areas that they want to focus on are classroom routines, social and pragmatic skills, and gross motor skills. I mean, the one that's probably most obvious is the social and pragmatic skills. We know with the pandemic, kids haven't had the same opportunities to interact with their peers, whether it's going to the park or going on play dates or being in school and in class. So really making sure that we're continuing to provide rich opportunities for kids to socialize and use language will continue to be a focus at early childhood. At the elementary level, one of the things that we learned about students was that they learned that they could do hard things. It is always exciting to see students discover and figure out something that they didn't know how to do and be able to do it. And we just felt like there were a lot of times that kids really were able to persevere and overcome. We also realized that they discovered they could learn in some new ways, right? We hadn't done remote learning this way before. And so just to see how they grew and developed, and how even as we transitioned to Room and Zoom, how they were really able to adjust that. And just today when I was in one of the classrooms, like they were just so expert at being able to connect, whether they were in the classroom or on Zoom. In terms of the curriculum, we did place an emphasis on reading and math as our foundational skills, but we also worked on other areas of the curriculum. One of the things that was really helpful was we did have a team of teachers that developed additional remote resource supports and provided those to help teachers with their instruction and in supporting the needs of their students. And we did it for each of the 4 quarters. And it was fun because I could always tell when it was getting close to the end of the quarter, because we'd get the email saying, are those coming out again? So it was just a way for us to really help streamline for teachers the work that they were doing. And that did include our Project Arrow students. Like we had a team of Project Arrow teachers that also created and shared those remote resource supports. In terms of social emotional learning, we know that the pandemic's been hard for people, not just kids, but for people, and that people have felt lonely and isolated because of it. And so one of our goals was to really make sure that students felt seen and felt heard, and to make sure that we just found ways to laugh and to have fun and to find joy in the learning that we were doing. And so often that came through a focus on building relationships or building classroom community, and people found some unique ways to be able to do that remotely. At elementary, our focus for next year is to really just continue to adapt our instruction to the needs of our learners, to continue to differentiate for the array of abilities that are in our classrooms, whether that's academic or social emotional. And our teachers' commitment, their words are, we're going to continue to show up and do the hard work for student growth. And as Doug shared, I mean, our teachers are tired. Like they have learned so many new things this year. And I'm sure you can imagine trying to make sure, right? They always set such a high standard for themselves. They don't want to miss anything. And so making sure that they're seeing their Zoom students and interacting with them, and making sure the kids in person, like it's a long day. For any of you that are on Zoom all day, you probably have felt that fatigue, but they are really up for the challenge. And really the success is from the work that each of our teachers has done this year. At the middle school level, one of the things they really noticed about their students was their capacity to self-advocate has greatly increased. In other words, if they weren't learning, or if it was hard, or they didn't understand something, or they didn't know how to log on, whatever the issue was, they noticed that our middle schoolers really figured out how to step up, to say, I have a question, to say, I need help, to say, can you, so that they were able to get what they needed and not just be passive learners, but really to be those active learners and make sure they advocated for themselves. In terms of the curriculum at the middle schools, we were really fortunate because many of the instructional tools that we've used in the past translated very well into the remote learning environment. And our teachers did a great job reimagining some of their in-person strategies and then learn some new strategies to engage students in that remote or hybrid environment. At the middle school level, we also were able to do the coursework for advanced and PA classes. And really at all levels, we did make sure we were focusing on those priority standards. What were the things that were most important for kids to learn to be able to go on to the next grade or the next year? Also at the middle school, a strong focus on relationships, community building. And for next year, their focus, and again, this is at all levels, is to really provide the full curriculum and to focus on accelerating learning for all students. The curriculum is very important, but so is our teachers being responsive to the needs of students in the classroom. And that's really the art of teaching, is being able to make sure that they can do both of those things. So we are already preparing and getting geared up for next year. While we're celebrating and working with kids this year, we have really high hopes and great things that we plan to accomplish next year too. And you're going to get to hear about some of the summer things, right? We're not all taking time off. We're all going to get the chance to provide some opportunities for summer learning too.
Wonderful. Thank you, Laura, for your presentation, Doug and Jen. And now we would like to invite Daryl Eccles to speak. He is the principal of Mattia. And I've got to say it one last time. Go, go Mustangs.
Thanks, Siley, and thank you, everyone. I think, Doug, do you have this slide?
You can go ahead and talk about high school. Go ahead and jump on there, Daryl.
Okay. Well, one of the things we're trying to do at the high school level is provide additional support for those students that may have lost a step during the pandemic, during the room and Zoom time. We do know that there have been some kids that have pulled back from engaging. We're first of all trying to find out the why, and second of all trying to find out how do we re-engage those students so that they can be successful and hit the ground running in the fall with us. Before I go any further, I think we do need to acknowledge Jen Rowe, who just recently received her doctorate, and so I think we need to put some hands together for Dr. Jennifer Rowe. We're super proud of her and the work that she's done in the district, and I'm just pleased to know her, and I appreciate everything that she's done over the years for us at Mattia and for District 204. So congratulations, Jen.
Congratulations.
All right. We also are working on credit recovery programs. We do have credit recovery already in the high schools, but we're looking to fortify that and potentially expand that and take that into the summer as well. We have some teachers that will be working extra hours for those seniors that maybe came up a little short near the end. We want to help them get across the finish line and graduate, if not on time, then at least during the summer months so that they are able to start their either college career or go right into the world of work. I know that 204 online courses are available, and they have been filling up over the summer for students to take high school credit and to some students to get ahead of the game. And so that's been a big push for us as well. If you could hit the next slide, please. I'm sorry, Doug, did you want to say something there?
Sure. And Daryl, I don't know if I know you have a slide a little bit later on, and I don't know if you already hit those. I can finish off with the summer learning stuff if you want.
Okay, yeah, why don't you take it?
All right, great. Our focus is just trying to provide additional support for students who've been, adversely impacted during the current school year. We've had some students that we've really struggled to engage with, whether it was, in person or remote, and really trying to meet those needs. At the same time, we know people need a break. We need a break from school. People are exhausted and tired. So we will have some opportunities this summer and are working now to also plan for a more robust opportunities in the following summer as well. So can you go to the next slide, please? At elementary, we are going to be sending scholastic books home with all early childhood through fifth grade students and for those to keep. And so we're excited about sending that home just so students can continue to read over the summer. We think that is extremely important. We do have Beyond the Bell grant activities going on at Georgetown and Longwood. We received a grant this year. It's 150,000 per school, 300,000 per year, up to 5 years, so up to 1.5 million to support after school, summer, and Saturday opportunities at Longwood and Georgetown. So this summer we'll have Camp Invention as well as Lit Camp for the summer. And we're expecting to have possibly up to 250 students involved in those opportunities. And then we'll be doing an academic boost, which will be a little bit later in the summer. It'll be the last 2 weeks of July, first week of August. Right now, it looks like there's a good chance that we'll be at 7 schools and inviting students from all 21 of our elementary schools to get a little extra boost of the summer if they really struggled during the school year. And teachers are working on contacting those families to support that. At the middle school, it'll be the same time period, last 2 weeks of July, first week of August. And they're doing a similar thing for some incoming 6th grade students and current 6th and 7th grade students to do a little bit of a cross curricular learning approach, trying to have fun and want to be at school and engaged in school. And they'll be doing all different kinds of activities there that'll cross many different areas and hopefully be fun for those students. And just a nice ramp as we go into the start of next school year. And at high school, we'll have credit recovery, as Dr. Eccles just talked about. They're doing that during the year right now, but we'll also be offering that during the summer. These are for students who might have gotten off track of the typical 4-year track to be able to graduate in. And maybe they're short on credits or did not do so well in a class and have an opportunity to make up that coursework so that they can get back on track. So we'll have plenty of offerings this summer, both in the beginning of the summer as well as later in the summer. We will have Freshman Bridge, which will be expanded a little bit this year. And we'll have, somewhere around 200 freshmen across the district who will have that opportunity just as they're getting ready for high school to hopefully make that transition smooth. We currently have about 1,400 students signed up for 204 online courses. And that's it's coursework that they get for high school credit that they can take over the summer. It's a little bit less this year. We had about 1,600 last summer. Obviously, there's still some time to register, and we're about 1,400 at this point in the summer. And then there's also COD, College of DuPage enrichment opportunities that do occur every summer as well. For students that are interested in that. That is tuition based that goes to COD, but it is in our school district. We partner with them on that. And those are all the different opportunities that are offered this summer, as well as ESY, which I know will be talked about a little bit by Dr. Sepiel as she takes over on the next slides.
Good evening. Just a recap on special education. So ESY, which stands for Extended School Year, dates are June 14th to July 22nd. It's approximately 3 hours per day, 4 days a week. And we have a good turnout. We will be offering both an in-person and remote option. We don't have a large number of remote students at this point, which is a good thing because we know we like to see students in person, and that is really the best way that our learners with challenges are able to conceptualize the instruction. When we reflect back on the pandemic and lessons learned, we did have more, as Laura Rosenblum said, we did have more participation, more connection with parents, because they didn't have to leave their home or their workplace or be inconvenienced by travel and all of those other factors. and it will likely be the preferred method for many parents as we go forward. It allowed for meaningful conversation and contact. The inclusion via Zoom. So when our special education students are with their in their general education classes, having contact with non-disabled peers, which is very, very important for them. They were able to see all of the students in their classroom instead of just those that might be sitting in front or to the side of them. And they were able to modeling behavior, modeling speech. Modeling is so important for our learners, and they were, through Zoom, able to see all the students at one time. So that was something that they actually don't get when they're in person. The connection with our staff, even with our youngest learners, as Laura said, with the EC, was much anticipated and highly motivating. I heard from several parents that their children really enjoyed that time, looked forward to the time where they were on Zoom with their teacher and they would have that individual connection. The same goes for students who receive their related services, such as occupational therapy, physical therapy, speech and social work. That was more of an individual nature. And of course, parents were even more involved than they ever have been. And we realized we couldn't have made the progress with students that we did without the parents' partnership. Sometimes parents had to sit right there to make sure that the student was attending and engaged. Sometimes the student was on the parent's lap, sitting there and enjoying the whatever was going on Zoom, but we really do appreciate those partnerships. It was crucial to the success that our learners were able to make. I think as we reflect on this last year and some months, I read something from the state board the other day on lessons learned, and something that really resonated with me was that they said, learning differently is still learning. And it causes me pause when I hear parents say, we've lost a year. That seems to take away from the great effort of our staff and our teachers. It was learning differently, but it was still learning. And we know that because now as our students are coming back in, they're not a whole year behind. They may have some catching up, but they have still learned and benefited from this experience. Thank you.
Thank you. Doug, are there more? There you go.
All right. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, thank you,
All
Daryl.
right.
Welcome.
Well, a couple things that we've been working on at Metea Valley High School specifically. The ILT team just completed the book study, Cultivating Genius by Dr. Muhammad. As a matter of fact, today we met and did chapter 8. And next week, we're going to get together and talk about next steps. And part of the next steps for us as a school is incorporating student voice. As a matter of fact, we had about 4 students join our ILT. The ILT is the instructional leadership team that's comprised of the administrative team and all the department chairs, science, math, social studies, and so on. The department chairs are there. And that's the team that helps plan the instructional strategies moving forward and talks about making sure that everything we do from an instructional standpoint is more inclusive, and that includes the type of literature that we're making available for students. So this has been very helpful, and General, I know, has also given us some awesome resources to go along with the book. And so our team is really working hard at listening to what students' needs are and making sure that we're being as inclusive as we can in our practices moving forward. Our ILT is also planning for SEL and executive functioning mini lessons. We're calling those the academic habits. That's going to be a term that you'll hear more frequently at all 3 high schools, academic habits. We do know that there are some students that are going to need to be recalibrated when they come back to in-person learning in terms of how to plan, how to, as Doug said earlier, how to work in a collaborative group in the classroom. That's something that's been kind of We've kind of moved away from that a little bit. We're starting to get back into that with the rooming and zooming. Most of our classrooms right now have between 12 and 16 students in there. And so it's starting to feel like regular school again around Mattia Valley. But we're going to be working to make sure that, I think Siley said it, or somebody said it earlier, it might have been Dr. Scipio, who said some people say we lost a year. Well, we certainly don't believe that. And we want to make sure that any skill gaps or any issues that students have had with doing school, we want to help recalibrate them and get them back into the fold with these mini lessons. Our equity team at Mattia Valley is monitoring the progress of our minority students. We're once again making sure that we have significant amounts of students getting AP and honors course opportunities. We want to make sure that students that have demonstrated academic proficiency are being recommended for AP and honors coursework. If you saw the last U.S. News and World Report, which ranked us as 26 in the state of Illinois, one of the things that we do have a high concentration of at Mattia Valley is a larger number of our AP and honors course students are minority and low income. And we're very intentional about making sure that those students don't slip through the cracks and that they're getting those opportunities in the more challenging curricular courses. So that's where we're heading at Mattia Valley. And I know they're doing a lot of significant work at the other two high schools as well. And as somebody said earlier, we're excited about having all of our kids back in the fall so we can continue moving forward. And as always, go Mustangs.
Thank you. Thank you, Daryl. Thank you, everyone who did the presentation today for coming here. I know how busy all of you are during the day, and to take this much time out, we really do appreciate it. We have been curating questions, and Karen Zatz and I will kind of take a look at them, and we've put them into groups. Any of you are welcome to answer them, but I'm going to start with the first one, and I think I think Doug, you talked about this, but certainly others can answer as well. What grade levels can participate in Longwood's Beyond the Bell activity? How do we get more info on the Beyond the Bell grant program? Will there be information coming out for elementary schools?
Yeah, if they're a Longwood or Georgetown family, they would have already received that information or should be receiving that information from the school. Per the grant, it is only open to the students at Longwood and Georgetown. Yeah, there were many qualifying factors that played into the grant. And so we've already been doing many after-school clubs since January. I believe it was around when we started those club opportunities, but it can only be for students at Longwood or Georgetown.
Okay, and is it all grade levels, or is this specific?
Yes, it's all grade levels, and they can, if they don't remember seeing anything from there, because I know they did a lot of trying to recruitment, because we had to have a minimum number of students for the grant who participated and had to ensure attendance, but they should reach out to either, if they're at Longwood, if they can reach out to their principal, Mrs. Ratner, or if they're at Georgetown, Mrs. Zurich.
Okay, so this was asked by a Georgetown family, so if you're still on the call, please do reach out to the appropriate person. But thank you for answering that.
And those, and sorry, those will also just be the very first part of the summer. They start pretty much right after school lets out and goes to about June 30, to the very end of June, because that'll complete that grant year. And then we start over again for next year, and we'll have many more options next year as we'll have the full year of the grant.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you for clarifying that. Another question probably to you, Doug, as well, is how are we working on the lunch problem? How is that going to look? I think a lot of parents and kids are interested in that.
Yeah, we still, we want full days next year. And so we're working hard towards that. We are, we're keeping our fingers crossed that some of the guidance also changes. The 6 foot distance that's required for lunch creates many challenges. And so in space challenges, supervision challenges. Right now, our middle schools and high schools are also thinking about, do we need to have more lunch periods? Like, do we need to change our schedule? There's so many different things that we're working through because we want all kids in for full days next year. So we're looking at every option. We saw what tents were able to do to help us. I do think at certain times of the year that could be very challenging, especially because, just even getting out to the tents and depending on the sizes of the buildings, those create challenges, like I said, with space, but also supervision. So, as more people also get vaccinated, we think some of the guidance could change around that. But having the 6 feet does create a challenge, but we're trying to work towards it. We know that might also entail trying to hire more people, just as it did this year in supervisors and or seeking volunteers and doing those types of things, just because we'll need so many locations if that 6 feet does not change.
Yeah, okay, that makes sense. Is there any thought of retaining the block schedule at a high school level for next year? I don't know if Daryl, you want to answer that, or Doug, or anyone?
Yeah, I can address that. At this particular time, no, we're looking at going back to our traditional period 1 through 8 schedule with, I think, 47-minute periods was the norm. Prior to that, we're looking to try to get, as Doug said, full days. We have a lunch plan as well. We actually have an A, B, and a C lunch plan that we're working on at Mattia Valley. And I know all 3 high schools are addressing that, because I'll just give you guys an example. Prior to the pandemic, our largest lunch was 671 students. So if you can imagine trying to find an area or areas where we can house students 6 feet apart so that they can take their masks off and eat is pretty challenging. So we're working on a couple things. We certainly want to make sure that happens and it happens safely for kids. So we've got a couple of different plans, but we're going to be ready in the fall when kids come back. But we are not planning on going to or retaining the block schedule as you saw it this year with the 70-minute periods.
Okay.
Well, and the other part of that was part of the requirement they had for us this year was 6 feet, and they had to be facing the same direction. So that also had created challenges for us where we had to be very creative, because on your traditional table, students would be facing towards each other. And that created many problems for us as well. So in addition to them being 6 feet apart, they had to be facing the same direction, which we were able to accomplish with a lot of extra work at the elementary levels. But part of that was also borrowing furniture to make that even a possibility. It's definitely been a challenge.
I can understand. This next question is for Dr. Sepiol. What are the specific guidelines to remain in remote learning? Please interpret the ISB guidelines for remote learning in the fall for students with special needs.
Yes, we are waiting for more information from the state on this. At this point, it's just a very general umbrella. As an example, for ESY, we're looking for students that remained in remote, even though they could have come back, and that have a significant medical condition that warrants that. We've had some interpretations of that by parents that have been somewhat different, saying that they wanted remote because of vacation plans or such, and that wouldn't be the reason to continue with remote. At least that's how we're moving forward in the summer, but we are waiting for more guidance. We certainly don't want to pry into, let's say, the medical situation of other family members in the home. We want to be respectful of people's situations, but we're waiting for guidance on what kind of information we can require and where our boundaries are. But right now for ESY, Again, it's only a very small number of students that are remaining remote, and it is because they themselves, the students, have significant healthcare issues.
Okay. So I guess one of the questions that we get asked a lot, and I'm sure you get asked as well, is when will you know what next fall looks like? And then are you simultaneously having full plan A, plan B, plan C? Kind of give us parents some idea of when we would have an understanding of what the school year looks like for our kids.
Right now, we're expecting families to think that next year is going to look, their schedules at least would look like a typical school year, a full day schedule, and that they should expect that. Now, for parents who are concerned about their child being in school for medical reasons, there will be a selection process that we're hoping comes out sooner rather than later. We continue to hear, like we often do, like, oh, the state's going to be coming out in mid-April with their specific guidance, because we don't want to give guidance or say it's for these reasons, and then the state comes and says something different. It just adds confusion and causes many different problems. But we know we're getting to a point where we're just going to have people make that selection so that we can move forward with that process and help make some determinations. With the survey that Dr. Talley had sent out, we're using that as, basing it on a percentage. So if a percentage of our families were to choose, think that they're going to need to be remote for medical reason, we're taking those percentages and trying to apply them across those grade levels to see, at the high school, it's a lot of work, but we're working through that right now. We're doing some great work with that. The principals and Mike Purcell have laid out for many different classes, if we could offer that class remotely for students in all 3 high schools, if we have this percentage of students who need that particular course versus some courses that we open quite a bit of, having a teacher do a section that might be remote even in their building may be a possibility depending on what those percentages come out with. For a district our size, even if you have a percent like 3%, that's still a significant number of students, for a district of our size. So we're looking at how do we manage that? What are we able to do? Do we need a, remote or distance learning team kind of at the elementary, a teacher from each grade level, depending on what that percentage or numbers are. So that's why it's going to be important for us to have people make that selection very soon. So that we can make sure that we're staffed appropriately for that. But people should anticipate that the schedule for school would look as it did pre-pandemic from start time, end time, and expecting to be at school for lunch and so on. That's what we're planning for.
Okay, and then to follow up with that, then what happens to quarantine kids? Because they have not chosen remote, but they will be out for a significant, especially at the high school level, 10 days could be a significant amount of time.
Yeah, well, I think there's a couple things with that. We are curious if some guidance will change around quarantining. As you know, there's 14 days, there's 10 days. We've heard rumors of shorter than that, and that's playing into that. We're having a committee work on what does quarantine look like. We've reached out to other school districts. Like we heard of a high school district that says they're not going to do anything for students that are quarantined. We're not in that same mindset. We feel like we need to be supporting our students who are quarantined. And so we're going through many different options. We are really hoping that that's not room and Zoom, because I think that was not only a challenge for students, but a challenge for staff. And so we're looking at what are other options we have. We also know that we're getting money from, federally to support COVID relief efforts. And we're looking at uses of that funding that might also support creative ways that we can support when students are quarantined. Whether that's maybe an access later in the day as well with their teacher, or how can they access the class during the day that might not be room and Zoom, but at least being able to, possibly watch those classes and then connect later on. And so we're looking at all those different opportunities right now and hoping that we have some, we would love to be able to have something that's pretty clear for everybody before school lets out this year of what that could look like for next year. Part of it, we're hoping we get guidance sooner. As you remember, we got our first guidance from the state last year towards the end of June, which was, kind of frustrating. We do not want to wait to that point in time. And so we're hoping that even if we do put out, something and the state hasn't, that hopefully it matches up with where our mindsets are at as well.
Thank you, Doug. I think one of the challenges for parents is going to be not knowing what next year looks like and having to make a choice. Whether they, if it was for medical reasons even, or say that a child is not able to get vaccinated for some reason. So my question would be, when you're asking parents to make a choice, will they have as full information as possible before they have to make a choice? And then two, if a child gets vaccinated or feels comfortable or their health improves, will they be allowed to change their choice and to be back in the school?
We're really hoping that, families aren't looking this necessarily as a choice of doing remote for next year. If they medically need to do remote, those are the services that we're planning on providing next year to support those students. Okay. So we are not envisioning the same numbers and the same as we were, a year ago at this time, where we knew a lot less and what things were going to look like. And the guidance at the time really from the state was about providing choice for families, whether they felt it was a more comfortable choice for them to be at home or in person. And then, when we actually got selection information, that really, as you know, changed a lot of things that we were planning for at that time. The most recent guidance that came out in March, even though it was generic in a way, because it didn't give specifics on it, it said that even at that time, the districts are only going to be held responsible for students who needed remote for medical reasons. And so that's why we're anticipating the return of the majority of our students.
Okay. This question is more for our ELL learners. I know we have many at PDAC that come to our PDAC meetings, and part of learning a language, is to be immersed in it socially as well. So could you give us a little bit of information on how our ELL learners did this year, and possibly, if we are a little bit behind, how we'll be helping them coming up in the summer or fall?
From what I've heard, our ELL learners have actually been doing quite well in this environment. I stay in contact quite a bit with Dr. Segura and, keeping in mind about how they're doing as we're currently trying to talk about staffing for next year and looking at those things. Our ELL learners have been doing quite well in general. Obviously, there's we look at students as individuals, and but he has a great team in place that's going to continue to support students. I wasn't prepared for that question, so I don't have a lot of specifics on it, but I know that he's been very pleased. You probably know we were bringing in students very early on to do screenings in one-on-one situations so that we could be on top of that as soon as possible to identify students to start trying to meet their needs. In casual conversations with Dr. Segura, it seems like our students have responded pretty well in this environment.
And I'll just add on to that, my conversations with Dr. Segura as well as the principals, you're right, have been very positive because we are continuing to provide EL services and support. And so whether they're meeting through Zoom or they're meeting in person, our EL staff are still supporting those students, and those students are still engaged in a part of whole group instruction and small group instruction, as well as at times one-on-one. So you're right, I've also heard very positive feedback.
Thank you. And I think we have time for one more question, and this is about testing, and I guess across the board at all levels. There were children that missed testing standards this year. How is that going to affect your data collection? Will there be a chance for them to maybe take the test earlier or a different test? How are you capturing all of that?
Are you talking about assessments for certain like programs and stuff like that?
Assessment tests, that's correct.
If I'm not sure if it's maybe related to looking at some of the Project Arrow or those types of things. I know that we're trying to work with families in individual situations and looking at what other data we have to support us, where it's maybe not just based on test data. So, and that's been a continuous process for us. Obviously, I'm new to this role this year, but it's been discussions that we've had quite a bit. So we are trying to look at those on an individual basis and see what other opportunities can we have. Are there things we can do where maybe if people didn't come in to take the test because they weren't feeling safe, are there opportunities we can provide where they would feel safe? But we know that some of those are also tied to certain test company timelines of how that data is calculated. So we're also looking at what other things do we have, like a fifth grader looking at how they performed in second grade and seeing what is that might maybe look like. Here's a fifth grader compared to how they've performed along the way as well. We're trying to look at whatever data points we have to be able to support students, whatever situation they might have been in this year.
Right.
I hope I answered the question. Sorry.
Yeah, they didn't ask specifically. That's wonderful. Again, thank you to all the parents that were on today. Thank you to all of you that took the time to be on PDAC. These questions were great. We tried to consolidate them into different verticals and areas so we would be able to use up all of our time. But if there is something specific that we could not answer, or the answer you wanted more details, please reach out to our speakers. All of their emails are on our district website. And certainly if you need any information on who to reach out to, you're welcome to reach out to our PDAC team as well. Next slide, please, the end slide. Please do stay in touch. We had a couple of questions saying we're new to the district. How do we get involved with PDAC? Each one of our schools has a PDAC liaison, and we will be putting out all of their names through your principals usually, or your PTAs for next year. So please do reach out to them and see how you can get involved. If you'd like to be a PDAC liaison, please reach out to your principal as well. You can follow us on Facebook, on Twitter. We have a sub-page as well on our district page. We hope that all of you will join us for our last meeting of this year on May 17th with the book stamped. You can register at pdac.eventcombo.com to get the link for that. And that we hope that all of you stay very safe and start enjoying this beautiful weather that we're getting and be able to see some people outside again. Thank you all for coming today. Thank you. If the team could just stay on the call and we'll stop recording.